Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of the Mumbai Manifesto. Hello and welcome to the 10th edition of the Mumbai Manifesto, a little bit of a milestone for us here at the Chavan Centre in Mumbai. Our topic for today, gender and the city. And to discuss this important but often ignored topic is Dr. Nandita Shah. Now, Dr. Shah has a MSW in social work from the University of Mumbai in 1983, which she followed up with a master's degree in women's studies from the International Institute of Social Studies, which is now in Rotterdam. And finally, she has a PhD, Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Amsterdam, which she completed in 2002. To match her stellar background in education, she has got an incredible body of work here back in her home country. She is the director at the Akshara Centre. She's a co-director at the Akshara Centre, where their work with women aspires to create a society which is equal, which is just, and which is violence-free. There are a number of initiatives that they've championed. There are countless lives which they've touched. A lot of this we will learn about as we speak to Dr. Shah today. Dr. Shah was also instrumental in setting up the 103 toll-free number, the Women's Helpline number all of us are very aware of today, particularly in Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, Thane, essentially in the cities of Maharashtra state. Dr. Shah is an experienced social worker, trainer, a public awareness campaign specialist, and an active member of the Indian women's movement. Today, Dr. Shah and I will discuss gender and the city with a focus on Mumbai, my home city, her home city.
Yes.
And I'll begin with a little bit of a bias by saying I consider Mumbai the safest city for women in India. Dr. Shah, welcome to the Mumbai Manifesto.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting.
Now, Dr. Shah, gender dynamics tend to influence the design of public space and also the usage of public space. But cities don't get to design and plan for the usage of public space every day. It happens in very punctuated windows, decades apart often. And Mumbai went through such an exercise recently. We had the development plan.
Yeah.
And I believe you did engage with this development plan. Can you share your experience?
So we engaged for a long time in the development plan. So in the first draft of development plan, which was under a French consultancy firm, we also had an engagement with them. And we found that they didn't have the sensitivity of understanding the gender inclusion part. So when a revamp effort was done under Dr. Ramnath Jha, we went again as a whole organization, and it wasn't only talking on gender, we were talking about everything as citizens' participation. So there was a larger group of us who were engaging on various issues, but gender group was a group that consistently followed up and looked at not only what is to be included, but even after the development plan was done, to see what needs policy changes in a long term. So we looked at the development plan for multiple areas. One was to say that a city like Mumbai, which is seen as a financial city, has got 16% participation of women workforce, which is
16%.
Yeah, which is really low compared to even a national average. And we felt that this is something as a city authorities need to take into consideration and do something about it. And it can only be done with planning in mind. And that was the starting point with which we approached the authorities, saying let's at least say in the next 20 years we'll go to 25%. So that was the vision with which we approach the authorities. And what does that mean in terms of public amenities? What does it mean in terms of the kind of services that are required in the city to be changed? So that's where the development plan, our intervention focused on that. And we looked at what are the obstacles women are facing to access the workforce. So of course the transport, the housing were taken care of by other groups, but so we focused on something which is specific amenities that are required. So the biggest problem in Bombay city is there is no childcare. So if a woman has a child, it's very difficult for her to access workplace because there isn't anybody to look after her, the child. So we said that why can't we provide for childcare facilities? Similarly, there is hardly anything for senior care facilities. So you get in a way bound by taking responsibility at home and not being able to be full-time employee somewhere because you have all these roles. And we said, what can we provide as a city to women to be able to access senior care facilities? We also spoke about it's very difficult for women to actually come to Mumbai city and find a place to stay on a short term. No society wants to give rental to single women. So the idea that single women will find it very difficult to find accommodation in city. You come for a short period of while, you don't feel comfortable staying in hotels. So we said, why
it's
can't
expensive.
Yeah, and why can't a city like Mumbai provide short-term accommodation facilities? And they are not hostels. So that's why we are saying accommodation facilities, and state should be able to provide, government should be able to provide that kind of thing. So we created a notion of multi-purpose housing in which you have women who can come as a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, as well as stay there for 2-3 years. And also we have no shelter for women in emergency crisis. So if you have domestic violence cases, you have no place in Mumbai city.
Right.
So we said, why can't some services like this be provided? And these are what are included in the development plan as a full vision. They have introduced new legends, which is the first time in the history of a country that legends of this kind have been introduced.
What do you mean by legends?
So they have, they define a particular service and then it gets added to,
No, it's okay, take your time.
No, so I'm just going to repeat it. So every development plan has a certain legends that get defined in terms of the categories. And those categories then have to get accepted. They have to have a basis on which those categories, so like for one lakh population. So all that gets defined.
And then gender is now part of that legend.
Gender and each of these services are part of that lens. And an entire chapter has been introduced, which is like really something fantastic. And we've been asking, why is Maharashtra not taking this up in other cities?
That's very interesting.
Because if Mumbai can do it, all cities can do it, and of course Maharashtra should take initiative and do it in all other cities. Because what we are saying is, look at a city planning from various perspectives. And gender is a very important perspective to look at.
I think gender should have its place in all,
Exactly.
like you've mentioned, you said something about housing and transport. I think each of these
should have.
And I believe they did also
Yes,
look
they
at it
did.
from that lens. So did you get a chance to speak in these fora
Yeah,
also?
absolutely. So for education, for example, if you don't have secondary education close to home, most of the time women are not able to access it. So we were looking at all these aspects, but many things were not getting involved incorporated when you're talking about education, you're talking about housing. How do we take care of some of these roles that women are today playing? And we are saying that if a creche is there, it doesn't have to be only women bringing child to the creche. Fathers can also bring child to the creche.
Correct.
So in a city like Mumbai, it's very difficult to travel with your child because you can barely travel yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
So how do we create more spaces in your ward, in where you live, so that it's easier for you to be able to access these services. So today, every ward is going to have 2 to 3 such centers.
Well, they've been planned.
They
So,
plan.
Dr.
What
I
I
have
mean
so many
is,
follow-up questions for you.
No. So
Yeah.
it's not just planned. A land has been reserved for these services.
Yes, that's the
So
idea of a development plan.
So that's what's happened.
Unfortunately, and I don't say this with any sense of, well, it's a little bit of disappointment, honestly, that historically development plans don't get implemented. That's the honest and bitter truth. They have some 10%, 15% implementation. So we have to take this with a pinch of salt at some level. I think they're ambitious, and at the very least, somewhere the direction has been something that we must appreciate.
Yeah.
It really was quite a disaster to begin with. Development plan, it had to have this kind of bandage treatment, and we're very fortunate to have the resources that you mentioned working on it, like Dr. Jha and even Prachi, and that they were able to make this process so inclusive that organizations like yourself got a voice.
True.
And organizations who were doing similar work with transport, similar work with just equality and equal cities got a voice. And it wasn't just lip service, right? The consultation had been sincere. So we wish the BMC the very best with implementation of the DP, but we do take it with a pinch of salt. I have so many questions for you. 16%, how do we so 16% is shocking, right? For a city where, you know, it's full of educational institutions, there's a high rate of literacy, higher education, women are empowered, women are safe. 16%? I don't understand it, and I'll tell you why, right? Let's try and break this down a little bit.
Sure.
Yes, we don't have creches, but it's not like all the cities that are not Mumbai are overflowing with creches. Okay, so every single facility or reason that you spoke of that Mumbai doesn't have, it's not there in any other city either.
Yeah.
But 16%, when the national average is 27%, is absurd as a number. It makes no sense. I mean, it makes no logical sense. Right? If this was a repressed culture and, you know, where women were not allowed to go and higher education was taboo and stuff like that, it's understandable. Mumbai is the exact opposite of that. There isn't a freer city, a more encouraging city. So where is the problem? The ambition that you've put in place, the target you've put in place, I think is fantastic. If we say that let's go from 16 to 25%, then everything focuses its energies on getting there, right? The target is fantastic, but the base number, how do you explain this?
So one explanation is that the number of employment in the city is not growing. You know, people go in the outskirts, they are moving to out of Mumbai, because Mumbai is a very expensive city to be in terms of any manufacturing. So once the mills have gone out of the city, the number of women who were employed in it has reduced. You also have this, you know, what in the economic terms we are saying that just because there is a higher number of educated women, they are not necessarily entering labor force. And that is the gap in the whole country we are noticing, that the gap between men and women in education is reducing, but the gap between men and women in employment is not. And that is to do a lot also with the Indian cultural environment that we have, in which sometimes you are educating your daughter not so much for her to be able to get into employment as much as that she will be able to have a better partner in marriage. You know, so you educate her and she continues education because then it seems like, you know, she'll get a better husband. And what we do a lot of work with young girls, and the constant thing is that even in a city like Mumbai, where you think that career and goals of working forward are there, marriage somewhere is very much part of the goal that, you know, you look at, you know. So everything is around marriage. Marriage ke baad sochenge kya karna hai. And that restriction of whether the girl will go to work after marriage is always a question. And I don't know whether you've seen the Indian kitchen, the Great Indian Kitchen, but the whole idea that we expect 3 to 4 hot meals a day, and that's generally on the new daughter-in-law who has arrived in the family. It's impossible for her to get into the workforce. So I think all of that put together is also contributing to this 16%.
I agree with you, and these are issues which I think are known and need to be addressed. But they're not unique to Mumbai. As a matter of fact, you would expect the reverse.
But you know, Mumbai also has a
other thing
huge
is
thing
that-
of transport problem. You know, like
Okay.
you find somebody getting from this part of Mumbai to Andheri, and they feel that, you know, my time, 2 hours will just go in transport. So it's a certain group of people who are willing to look at the opportunity cost of that. But somebody who's managing home with everything else, then will look for something that is close by, and they're always, you know, it restricts your ability to choose.
I think it's a fascinating number. Just stands out. I mean, if
Yeah.
this number is so low, it is an absolute blot on the city.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the source of this number is.
It's census.
It's census data,
Yeah.
right? So
It has nothing to do with.
I am just completely flabbergasted. I cannot get over this number.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If there's an indicator about women's safety, progression, one would expect Mumbai to be right up there, not languishing below the national average by 9 points. It's shocking.
Let me just add to this. You know, we did a survey in 2019, just before COVID, of 8 cities in India. Equal number of men and women, over 3,000 men and 3,000 women. And we looked at 4 metros and 4 smaller cities and looked at what is the attitude of men and women to gender equality. Because we believe that, you know, the younger generation is more woke and they are more able to take the whole idea of gender equality. And we were actually very shocked to find Mumbai men to be not so gender equal. And Mumbai women were very, very high. And the gap between the men and women's index is 24, which is the highest in the whole country.
Oh my God, another
So
one.
I was like, we were just so shocked
No, I'm shocked as well just listening to
that,
this.
you know, how could we have a city which is, you know, loved by all of us, which is experienced differently by all of us, where such a big gap is there. And, you know, a lot of time people say that, oh, women's organization, their data is always to be questioned. We did this with Kantar Public, so it's
I mean,
not
you are
like...
no biased against Mumbai anyway.
No,
so
not
we-
biased,
yeah.
but like sometimes you just feel that, you know, how good the data is. We did it in the proper way because we believe that we really need to understand where we are as a country and where we are in all the metros. So there is this notion that, oh, women have arrived now, so we are in the post-feminist era, and, you know, women are now more than equal. If you have a conversation with somebody saying, oh, women to bhi bahut powerful ho gaye. But you look at these realities. I mean, let's not take the very violent rape and murder kind of instance. This is the everyday we are talking about. And even in that everyday, we are finding this kind of differentiation that is being done from perspective of men and women. And that is where we felt that we need to do more work in our cities. The second thing that we found in the study, which was also shocking, is 15 to 19 are not more gender equal. We had this notion that the younger the generation are going to be more with it, and they will be totally understanding the gender equality. They are not.
I'm shocked.
So I'm
Everything
going to
you're saying
I'm going
to
to
me
share
today,
the
I
study.
am shocked.
The study is there on our website, but
Right.
I'm just saying that for us also it was really shocking that you know, we assume so
It's so much
of,
more woke.
yeah,
I mean,
15 to 19, and the only part on which they were woke is open to sexual relations.
Okay.
Everything else, violence, sharing of housework. 1.5% of men across India said the sharing of housework is their work. Doing housework
Only
is their work.
1.5.
They will help. It's women's work, they will help. They will do it together, but it's not my responsibility.
Okay.
So, you know, this kind of data is shaking us up.
Yes, but it's very, very important to know at least and
Yeah.
acknowledge. We can't put
It
this under the-
aside.
yes.
And, you know, sometimes we feel that really so many things have changed. And I can tell you that from when I started being an activist, like when I was very young, to now, I see a huge change. I see a huge change amongst women. I see a huge change amongst men. But the gap is still there. Such a big, wide gap is there. And, you know, we cannot just sit comfortably and say that we have arrived.
I think I'd like to recap this once for the viewers. That according to census data, Mumbai's workforce has only 16% women, and the national average is close to 27%.
It's increased now.
It's the national average or the Mumbai average?
No, the national average.
The national average has increased now. So there was 11 points of difference. How do you explain this in Mumbai, okay, as a city? And the other one is when you interview people and you talk to people about gender equality, gender roles. Mumbai seems to have been one of the more aggressive respondees overall. How do you explain this? I just can't. I'm not understanding how. Let me be very honest. And I love my city and I'm a staunch defender, but even so, I'm very open to criticism. I can't understand this. Mumbai is also very multicultural, right?
True.
It's not like we're this monolithic society. True. Everyone is same language, same culture, same food, therefore same regression. We come from all over the country. A lot of us come from maybe outside the country. We have cross socioeconomic spectrum is very vast.
True.
We have the biggest billionaires in the country. We have nation builders, and we have 60% almost or 55% slum population, and everything in between. We're the most colorful melting pot that India has. How can we have such a regressive response? Please, somebody explain this to me. Okay. Well, let's come back to the city, and there's so much to talk about. Now I'm feeling strange to say, you know, Mumbai has done some great work but it has. You know, Mumbai has been consistently a safe city for women. This is my opinion, and please correct me if you think otherwise. But women still face challenges every day. Just because there isn't an incident which gets highlighted in the newspaper, it doesn't make the journeys of women any more comfortable, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You've had maybe detailed discussions with a lot of people on their daily experiences, which may not be as shocking to make the news. But can you talk about how women navigate daily lives as working women in a city like Mumbai? What are the challenges they face?
So as you say, it's really true that Mumbai is giving an experience of safety. I mean, I can travel at 2 o'clock in the night and I'm fine. But what we are finding is that younger women navigating, it's a lot to do with age also, younger women navigating the city. In fact, at some point of time, all of us have experienced some kind of street sexual harassment. Now, the thing is that it may not be very serious, it doesn't, amount to very severe sexual assault, but that everyday experience affects my feeling of safety, my fear is always there as a factor behind my mind. And what we are saying is, a city like Mumbai, can't we change that? Can we change that for all of us? That I don't have to be afraid that I can go anytime. You know, 103 started because 2 women were molested outside JW Marriott in 2007 on 31st night when they were with their partners. And they were just walking towards a parking lot. And they were very badly molested by the crowd. And because there were photographers that were going to take pictures of celebrities going, they captured this whole thing. And when it came out on the 1st, it was shocking that a city like Mumbai could molest 2 women who had just come for partying, you know. And that's where the idea of 103 came up, that yes, we have 100 as a response number, but when a city authority makes a public announcement that we are here to take care as an emergency response, it gives a feeling of safety better. It gives me a sense that this is my number, this is somebody I can call. And it really did have a huge impact. And even today, after so many years, 103 is a number that gets called, and the second highest crime that is recorded is street sexual harassment after domestic violence, even today.
Wow.
So it doesn't mean that FIR is done. It doesn't mean that you take it very much forward, but the fact that I have called a number saying somebody is harassing me gives you a sense that it's still going on. And every day when you are traveling from, you get off a train station and you experience it. You get off any crowded place, you experience somebody touching, somebody groping. And we are saying, why does this have to be there? When it happens every day, it's there in the back of my mind. I'm angry, I'm frustrated. I'm not able to feel confident as a person because I have to navigate this almost as an occupational hazard. And why? That is a question we are raising.
So when you're saying you want to eradicate this, let's say, right? It's not just an infrastructure issue. It is much more, as a matter of fact. It's changing the cultural psyche of a city at some level, right? It's changing mindsets en masse, and that's a monumental challenge. That being said, credit where credit is due. The 103 helpline has had a tremendous impact. It is ubiquitous across. Every woman knows about it. Men also are very aware of it. And even once again, credit where credit is due. Mumbai Police. Yeah, hats off to this group.
Absolutely.
Incredible amount of work, dedication. They've not let it go. In fact, they've stepped it up.
Yes.
And then there's branding on the vehicles. You see the Mahila Police Karmachari sitting in the front
seat. But
seat.
it's only in Mumbai, by the way.
But at least it is, and there is that consistency, and it makes a difference. And somewhere I think it is, the numbers might be shocking to us, but somewhere I feel that it's much better that the amount of reporting has increased.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise this same incident had a silent life.
Absolutely.
Which was unreported. It's shocking because of the reportage.
When a girl in a slum calls up and a 103 patrol beat marshals arrive, just the fact that they have arrived already creates a preventive setup. So sometimes you don't have to do, but that prevention role is there. But I just want to come back saying, yes, a mindset change has to happen, but a lot of infrastructure things also have to come into play. Like, I'll just give you a simple example. The fact that we think that Bandra Kurla complex is like, the wow thing in a Bombay city. We are saying that a single-use plan that is done in the city planning by design creates an unsafety.
What do you mean single-use plan?
It's mainly for office. So when its offices are over, it's not mixed with residents and all equally. Now they are changing and more residences are coming. But by design, you have nobody in the evening. So you have access only to people who have cars, who can move around, because even the transport is not planned really for people to be able to move around safe. So if you have to walk late in the night in BKC, you will feel not so safe. So that is also part of infrastructure design. And we are now getting worried with this new development of 5-floor parking that we are now proposing. We are going to have no eyes on the street in certain points of time, and that's also going to create a sense of unsafety at some point of time later. So I think design and infrastructure planning is a very critical part of looking at safety.
Very well said. Very well said. I think, the MMRDA really needs to look at this and acknowledge it to begin with. The Bandra Kurla complex is the headquarters of the MMRDA, and after dark, it's not the greatest place. And it's changing now because you have these restaurants which keep popping up. There's some hotels now that are there. There are some restaurants.
There's a lot of change.
There's now a sprinkling of residential projects, but very few compared to the number, and it's all high end, right? It's not a common man kind of a restaurant that somebody can go into and access and get a meal at a reasonable price. So these things become exclusive. The more exclusive it becomes, the lonelier it becomes, and at night, this is not the safest of places. But BKC and MMRDA right there have a lot of opportunity to engage with the likes of Akshara Resource Centre and Dr. Nandita Shah. There are many other groups in the city who will willingly come and do a part of public consultation to help make places like BKC and other places in Mumbai much safer for women to navigate. When we speak of infrastructure, Dr. Shah, I think of the Mumbai railways, you know, the suburban rail system. And of course, we know this is central government, comes under the Ministry of Railways. But they've been giving Mumbai some very special treatment, and we have to acknowledge that as well. One of the great initiatives and progressive initiatives of the suburban rail system was the Ladies Special. And it's literally been like a lifeline to so many women who otherwise were struggling during rush hour to get to and from work and home, whose journeys have been made easier. Firstly, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the Ladies Special, number one. And then other than the Ladies Special, what are some of the other infrastructure initiatives that you know of within Mumbai or the Mumbai metropolitan region that are focusedly women specific?
So I think Ladies Special was really great, and it started with just one train and now it's increased. And it really provides women this opportunity to reach home faster. And I think it's, if you ask any woman, they would say that give us more Ladies Special or give us more compartment. But, it's not possible because of the limitation of how many trains can you run at one point of time. So that's always a challenge. And I think Railways is really trying hard by increasing number of compartments that it can have. So it's
Today
become
it is what,
12.
3 out of 12?
12.
3 out of
3
12?
out of 12.
Right.
So 12, they have added more compartments. They are trying to do as much as possible, and all these mega blocks that happen on every Sunday, it's been going on for some time. So there's always this development. So one of the effort that we have made is also to say that in and out of railway station, how can we improve? Because though the trains are there, the in and out experience of sexual harassment is very strong. So lot of times those can be improved. Like, can we have a single line in which women can get out? Those attempts have been made.
Get out of the train or get out of the railway station?
Get out of the railway station. Get out of the train, so you can't do anything. I mean, everybody's just going to come out. But when you are coming out, that's when you get molested. The second thing we feel, which is, so we've been doing safety audits of railway stations. And we are saying that those audits can become data points as to where are the problems. So is a gang standing near the ladies' compartment and harassing? Can we do, are there lights that are working? Are the toilets working? Because toilet is the biggest problem.
Very big point.
And you don't realize women don't drink water. Today, urinary tract infection is so common amongst women because you don't drink enough water because you're so afraid that you'll not be able to go. How can we have a city of like a Mumbai and not have facilities that are possible for women? And most of the time the toilets are not clean, they are not used well, they are not maintained.
Are you talking about the toilets within the railway stations?
Railway station.
Okay.
So I think those improvements are also required. I mean, yes, there is a huge number of people who are going, but I think that's not an excuse. We have to find a solution to this problem, So
I mean, it's not rocket science, it's a toilet. Other parts of the world also have a lot of footfall. The toilets function perfectly okay. BMC, some of the Sulabh toilets are doing very well.
Yeah.
Some of them are doing very badly, but some of them are doing very well, and we must stand up and appreciate that.
Yeah.
If the BMC can do it, so can the railways. It's a very important part of women's health. This has been something that's consistently been highlighted for years together, that women who travel on the suburban rail system in Mumbai deliberately, before they leave work, are not drinking water. They're dehydrated. They're long 2-hour journeys only because they fear that they might need to relieve themselves. And these toilets are not fit to be used. Across all those central, western, harbour line, all
There
the
is
toilets are
a lot of now
terrible.
improvement that is happening in that, but
Thank God.
it's not enough.
It's
That's what
certainly
we are
not enough.
saying.
And
Yeah.
in terms of, look at the spending on that we do on one, Bandra Worli ceiling kind of is 30,000 crores for the coastal road and 30,000 crore rupees for an underground metro.
Yeah.
I mean, surely our priorities can allow us to say, let us have our women be able to relieve themselves in public toilets with some amount of dignity. That should take some priority when we are being able to spend lakhs of crores of rupees on infrastructure. I think this one thing is a big blot on the Indian Railways. How do you rate the BMC toilets that we have the other across the city by
So
comparison,
even-
and what is
So
your...
we've been part of this campaign called Right to Pee, and we are saying that even the BMC toilets are not enough. And if you compare the number of seats or number of possibility for men and women, it's very low. And women have to pay. In Sulabh Sachaya, even if you have to pay, the toilets are not always adequately managed well. And the biggest challenge that we have is that who is maintaining it and is it maintained well? So you go to airport, it's maintained well. You go to a mall, it's maintained well. But when it comes to anything to do with public, it just suddenly goes off. So we've been saying to even BMC that can we have mobile toilets that can happen? Like Pune has done it. Have mobile toilets that are available at multiple locations. Can we think of ways in which Bombay City can respond to this need? And that is something that is just not moving forward.
We've been able to build a 22-kilometer bridge over the sea, right? Marvel of technology. We can't create toilets that work. We need to find these out-of-the-box solutions. If you go to this Mumbai-Pune expressway, and you go to the food mall there, the fancy one, the footfall is tremendous. Every minute there are people. That washroom is just continuously being used. No smell. Very beautifully kept. Everything
But
is
the investment in terms of maintenance is where the problem is. People like BMC doesn't mind saying we'll construct it, but who will maintain?
Of course the BMC must maintain it.
So that is where the line is, because then they are saying
if they have that 80,000 crore rupee corpus, let us make sure that our citizens can pee with dignity. Come on, I mean, how difficult is it to ask of the BMC? Let us know, BMC, if you are short on money to maintain toilets so that women can pee well, somebody will step up. I mean, it's on a lighter note. I know there are challenges across the board, but this is something that is a matter of shame. When women's dignity is compromised in the public realm because we can't maintain toilets, it doesn't matter how creative the excuse is, it's going to be unacceptable. It ought to be unacceptable.
True.
So moving on, Mumbai has Mumbai is two cities in one. It's the formal and an informal. It's the slum and the non-slum. And you've worked closely with both communities. Is there a difference when it comes to gender and gendering of spaces, and when it comes to access, and when it comes to safety, right? Is there a difference between Mumbai, the formal city, and Mumbai, the informal city?
We are finding that in both the spaces, somewhere women's access is limited. Like, I'll give you an example. You go to any public place, playground. We have had instances where women have gone to play football and men who are playing saying, "Ye hamara ground hai." So this notion that I'm entitled to every public place as a boy or as a man, and women have to negotiate that at every point of time. Negotiate saying, am I supposed to be here? Can I be here? Assert your right to be accessing the city equally. So one of the slogan we have is, ye shahar jitna tumhara hai utna mera bhi hai. And that realization girls don't have, and boys and men don't have in the same way. So all the time the girls have to justify, why are you here? You can't just loiter. I mean, are you okay as a girl? You are not a good girl from good family if you're just hanging around. things have to change in this mindset, both for women and men. The second area that we feel in public access, like for example, Mumbai has a culture of, newspaper stands on the streets. How many times have you seen a woman access that? Now 10 newspapers are coming there. No woman will ever stand and read there. So we ran a campaign on that, saying why is it that mandals who run these stands cannot have access, encourage access for women?
How would they go about doing that?
So we did a survey of some 18 such newspaper stands, and we said, why are women not accessing, and what can we do to have women access? So women said that one is that we don't feel comfortable standing there because everybody will be watching us reading. The second was, can we have some other kind of material also? So can we have, because newspaper stands are there and there's somebody looking after that, nobody will take away those newspapers. Can we have some magazines there? Can we have some other kind of material also there? So this was a conversation we were doing with some of the mandals. But we are working also with girls saying, why are we not accessing it?
So you're saying that the kind of material that's there should also be different to that?
Could be different if you want to get it gender inclusive. But I was talking to some of the journalists and she said, it's true. It's there in front of my house, but I never go there and stand. Even though I will get those 10 newspapers to come to home, I don't feel that I can go and stand there and read a newspaper.
So it's a perception thing?
It's your own self-censorship. And that's what you do constantly in accessing public spaces. You self-censor yourself saying, should I go into that space? Will I be seen in a particular way in that space? And that is the kind of conversation that we constantly have to do as women to access public spaces.
That's a fascinating thought. This idea of self-censorship is so relevant in the context of cities and how women access spaces. And it's very true, if you look at public parks, that Maidans that you mentioned, women have a peripheral use and function on the katta, doing the walks on the outside as a group after dinner, right? Of course you have so many women who are now running and jogging and walking, but still it's a peripheral function. The center of the Maidan, which is for sport, tends to be dominated unless somebody does an intervention and says this is now from this time to this time is women only. It's a two-way street, right? No one's actually stopping women. Like at Shivaji Park, no one's actually stopping women. At Azad Maidan and Oval Maidan and Cross Maidan, no one's actually stopping women. But it is at some level some form of self-censorship which draws...
No, but I'm telling you, we have gone. Women have gone to play. And we have had even police intervention because men are saying कि ये तो हमारा ground है. So this sense of entitlement and on the other side...
Territorialization.
That ये तो हमारा, हम तो इतने सालों से खेलते हैं, ये तो हमारा है. So then you don't have a right to be in that public space, and that is true most of the time around. That the sense is that this is where we stand, this is what we do, this is the place, and if you are coming and you are trespassing our space, it's not seen as our space and we trespass. And that's not true only for women, it's also true for other genders, other
men would want to come and play.
Other men, it's also something to do with, class. So a certain group of men from certain class will not be allowed. So it's true that entitlement is there among certain group of people, but how do we change that in a city? And like what you say, that Mumbai is not only a safer city, it's also more equal city from our perspective in a way. But things are also changing. Like, earlier we used to go to a single-use theatre and you had the maximum difference between class was ki you in stalls or you were in balcony, But you all mingled. You came out at interval and had the same popcorns and you got out. Today, we have more and more divisions.
That's the nature of capitalism at some level.
And also nature of the way cities are growing. But we are creating a space in which that mingling of different groups of people is getting reduced.
Correct. At least in the private realm. I mean, so coming back to the public realm, I would like to play devil's advocate briefly here. So we know that Mumbai, for example, has very little public space per capita. The standard is 10 square meters. We have less than 1 square meters. 1.2 is the number that BMC gives, but it includes cemetery spaces, road dividers, all of which there, even those gymkhana spaces, which typically are just public spaces which are for private access. So we are under 1 square meter. As it is, the amount of space available is very low.
Yeah.
Right? Within that, if there's a group of people who regularly use a public space and have been doing so for years, it's become part of their everyday routine culture. They have a sense of ownership towards that space. It's natural for them to feel a little threatened or a little offended, a little shaky, because somebody's now told them, no, now we have to use this space. So sharing of space, it's, if there was ample space and this happened, it's a very different thing. So what can be done, one from a policy perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, so that we get more women using public open spaces for activities beyond those peripheral walks and beyond that katta gupshup, actually participating in sports?
So we had actually, it's true that spaces are not there, and whatever spaces are created, like say for example, under the flyovers are also now getting used up by parking and all that. So there was a discussion earlier with BMC that why don't we convert some of the under the flyover, not the best option, but at least under the flyover spaces for certain other kind of interactivity amongst communities. And can we, there were lots of ideas. There were ideas about, can we have some kind of a little, like a reading room space? Can we have it a place in which some conversations can happen, like more safer, enclosed, not fully enclosed, but like some space which is where women can access. So there were conversation of that kind that we have to find a way to utilize under the flyover, because these are the new so-called public spaces. There's lot of problem, like lot of objection that people have to Matunga flyover. The King Circle under the flyover has been converted into a walking space, and people are saying that that's like the worst air to inhale, which is true, because the tar is emanating certain kinds of particles.
It's all the number of vehicles, heavy vehicles constantly going up
like
and down.
this is the new public place. What do you do in those spaces? So I feel that we need to find newer solution. Even if you look at the new properties have a certain reservation for public, it's like, the new buildings that are coming up, they make public parks, but then finally they're only utilized by the residents of those buildings,
So it's a sham.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just how do we handle the lack of public space in city?
Moving on, we'll be coming close to wrapping up now.
I just want to add,
Yeah.
the new public places that can also come up are next to all the coastal road development. And I think that's also a new public space. It's a new created area. And how open are we going to make them? How control are we going to make them in terms of privatized spaces? So people have a dream about Mumbai where, it's going to be the other Shanghai. But what about how can we allow it to be accessed by everybody? So if the whole coastal road is opened up for people, it's a huge big public space.
It is. It's not. I mean, yes, the coastal road is a beautiful seafront sort of promenade, if you want to think of it like that, and there's going to be a lot of public space. But this will open up a whole different conversation.
I know.
And my master's thesis was on the coastal road, so this will go in directions we can't imagine. But yes, the idea is even spaces like the promised spaces, public open spaces of the coastal road, we have to go out of the way to make sure they're inclusive public spaces.
Yeah.
Because right now it seems like you need cars to access them. We should make sure that there's public transport that takes you to those places and you're able to access them. A couple of questions that we have to run through, but one very important one. One of the problems with Mumbai, and you touched upon this, is access to housing. Housing is very expensive in Mumbai. To rent We have the highest rents in the country.
Yeah.
Almost nobody can dream of buying a house. Like, let's
Yeah,
put that
true,
out of
true.
the equation.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to sell everything and plan for like 30 years before you can buy your house. But even renting is difficult. Within that,
Yeah.
it seems renting for single women is even more difficult, one of the most difficult. So what has been your experience here? Because I know the BMC has got some ambition here to do women's hostels and stuff. So what has been your experience here?
So, our experience is that for single women, it's very, very difficult to hire. Most of the societies, cooperative society would not want to hire, give it to single women. There have been experiences of societies even saying nobody can come to meet you even if you hire, because they are afraid of what these single women will bring to their cultured society. So this whole notion of control is very strong. So besides being expensive, it's also the idea that
Discriminatory.
single women will bring bad vibes to their society is very, very strong. So most of the time they will not give it out. So it's difficult, even if you have money to get housing. So what we propose in the development plan discussion is that why is it the city is not providing a certain facilities of this kind, which is not a hostel. And that's why we are saying that BMC has to provide temporary rental accommodation in which a guest house can also be there to a 2 to 3 year period rental housing, which is affordable, which is safe, and which is allowing this woman who has come to the city a chance to network with other women. And that's why even if you look at, we worked a lot on the design of the center that has come up in Goregaon, on how it can allow for that interactivity. What kind of ways in which, so it's not just a hotel with one room, but we have created spaces for interactions and stuff like that. So right now there's an advisory committee on gender that BMC has created. And this is again first in the history of the country.
That's brilliant.
Which is what BMC is able to do. And it's allowed a group of 6 independent people, so a journalist, an architect, urban planner, gender expert, academic, to come together to contribute to the vision of what will run in these centers and what will be their physical designs.
I think the intention is great. I think the approach is great. One must need to kind of applaud the BMC for taking it up and bringing together with public consultation, public resources to. I hope it comes through. We have time for a couple more questions, but I want you to just, one is touch upon your experiences, personal experiences in dealing with, because you've also done a lot of work in training, right? In the follow-up of some disaster that happens at the nation, there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction, but then it comes down to people like you who are sitting there over a period of months or maybe years even to sit and train, create awareness.
Yeah.
Right? And when you do this within public institutions, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But you've done this with the BMC, you've done this with the BEST, you've done this with the Mumbai Police, you've done this with the suburban rail system as well. So can you give us what was your experience in dealing with these? What are some of the great positives, some things that you appreciate, and what were some of the challenges, and where can there be change?
So what we find is that in Mumbai, there's a lot of willingness if you have the right approach to go. So if you go with data, the authorities are willing to listen. So when we went to 103 time, when the 2 women were molested, we said it's not that Mumbai police is not doing anything, but do we have a system of response? And can we create that? And that's where the police responded and set up 103. We had already done something like that in Thane. So we used that example and we said, okay, why can't we do it in Mumbai? And it was picked up. But it is continuous process of training. We even, police even allowed us to do a certain kind of evaluation of how it's running. So important thing is that you're not going to the press with all the weaknesses. That's one learning, that you are partnering with them. You are doing it together to improve that particular service. And once there is a trust of that kind, then authorities are willing to collaborate and listen to you and take your suggestions, allow you to do training. So how do we build that process is an experience that we had to also learn in the process, that, you know, we were not going to go out and say, you know, evaluation done. Recently we have done also audit of all the subways in Mumbai city. And we are saying that we will have a dialogue with the BMC on that. We will say what's working, what's not working, and how we can improve it together. Instead of saying, which is so easy to go to One Times of India because they've been asking us, and we are saying, no, we don't want to make this into a public document right now. Because it is this partnership that will allow us to actually bring about change. So that is, so once you have the data, there is a willingness to look at it. The challenge is how much of it is really incorporated completely and institutionalized. So that is always a challenge. So with, for example, with BST, we were able to say, let's incorporate a gender module in your training. So it got institutionalized. But they don't have trainers. So it's always dependent on outside agency to come and do the training. Now, how can we create trainers from within? So that's a kind of challenge. And this thing is, and that's true across even with railways. So we are saying, as a system, if we can identify who can be your emergency response. So for us, 103 is an emergency response by the police. Conductor is the emergency response by the BST. Because they are there. They can stop.
Correct.
Do you mandate them to stop? That is the thing that we are trying to bring. Can the conductors be mandated that you can intervene and that we will as a system support you? Because if that person takes the bus to the police station and they are half an hour delayed in coming to the depot, he should not be reprimanded.
Correct. Correct.
So those system of institutionalizations have to be done.
Right.
And once they are done, then they stay on. The biggest challenge is that even though we work as a corporation, nobody wants you to be there as a monitoring body. And that, how do we build that trust and take it forward?
Or institutionalize some self-monitoring.
Self-monitoring they have in their own, but we are saying that if you work together for so long, can we have a certain level of acknowledgement that we will bring in certain value? So the value is recognized, but it's not given any formal role. And we feel that formal role, and internationally if you look, like if you look at Barcelona, they have such strong collaboration between different organizations. So the public-private partnership has to be on equal footing. And that equal footing is what we need to develop more. We need to sharpen our engagement. We are not saying do it with us, but do it in a way that is more transparent and do it in a way that has a long-term possibility of that contribution.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that is what we need to do.
Dr. Shah, as we conclude this, a word of gratitude for the amazing work that you've done tirelessly over the years for the cause of gender equality in urban spaces, particularly your work in Mumbai. Of course, your work is pan-India and beyond the boundaries. For our viewers, please do support, follow the Akshara Women's Resource Centre and the great work that they do. You've left us with a couple of very stark numbers. The 16% in the women's workforce, and of course the general perception of gender equality when it comes to the surveys that you conducted at the Akshara Foundation. The first, of course, being data from the census. Now, these are not flattering numbers, but they hold up a mirror for the city.
Yes.
And it's something we must look at and look at very seriously. And we must, all of us collectively, the authorities, the citizenry, NGOs, corporate houses, work to remedy this number. We have to, at the very least, be above the national average. And we have a long way to go. Dr. Shah, it's been incredible having this conversation with you. We've learned so much and we would like to learn a lot more, and we hope to see you back soon.
Thank you
on
very
another edition of
much.
the Mumbai Manifesto. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.